Up next, we have Jim Hahn from Penn Libraries to talk about semi-automated methods for a BIBFRAME work entity description. And you are now the presenter.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. So continuing on our adventure through automation and reuse of Annif, I'm going to talk about, here we go, basically how we can help catalogers who are using this new vocabulary, BIBFRAME, and how it could be integrated into an RDF linked data editor. And so what I did was configure Library of Congress subject headings from the linked data service at the Library of Congress, use that vocabulary in Annif, and I used some combined sources, both from libraries. There's a consortium of libraries called IvyPlus. I used selected records, and also from ShareBDE, Penn ShareBDE enriched records, and the PCC data pool enrichment as a training corpus. And really what I was hoping to do was find ways that might help catalogers in creating new linked data descriptions. And in the BIBFRAME vocabulary, it's the work description that you're pulling in subjects. So it's resource intensive to create these linked data descriptions, and in some ways it's actually more time consuming than classical ways, traditional ways. And because you have these external authority entities, I think this web conference, you understand that we really need to do a careful selection and referencing of external authority entities, and it can be time consuming, but it's very important. And so I think you're increasing the value of what you're doing when you add these external resources, of course. So how can we help? How can we help in describing the BIBFRAME work entity in an RDF editor for the cataloger who's not only are they in a new editor, they're in a new vocabulary, and they're trying to describe this resource. So how can we help them, right? Here's a little screenshot of the RDF editor, and my attempt. This is a selection of the Sinopia RDF editor developed at Stanford. Jeremy Nelson, he has a good article in Code for Lib on the development of this. What I trained it against was title to subject, and I'll show that next. Okay, so we have this title label here and potential suggestions that in the proposed system, a cataloger would be able to select or deselect, because not all these titles are going to be relevant. So everyone had an overview of Annif from the last talk. And I really appreciate that it's open source and that you can use it to generate these subject suggestions. What I did was trained against titles. So we have this title field 245A. And then if it has a Library of Congress subject heading, that was used. So these are that was the training corpus, and it was trained in the way that I thought it might be used, which was BIBFRAME title elements. Of course, there's more we can do there, and I'll talk about that later. But this was the initial training. And in the Mattermost, you'll find this link. So this is the linked data vocabulary converted to, so LCSH SCAS wasn't at the time available in TTL, so I needed to convert that. And at the same time, before I used a really large corpus, the 9 million title subject pairs, I first tested it out just on Penn ShareBDE enrichment. So we have a little under 2 million just at Penn. And here's kind of some libraries have made investments like Duke they have quite a few subject references in the 650 field. Now, that's not the only place you could put a subject reference. There's also some limitations in that the LCSH vocabulary. I mean, it's possible to construct subject assignments that you might not find in the id.loc.gov download. So we really are looking at subsets of data. It doesn't make any, basically, I'm not asserting that it's comprehensive, but this is where the records came from initially and where you could find title subject pairs. And when I did analysis of IvyPlus libraries, it seemed about 25% of the libraries had subject references. And I was only looking at LCSH right now that had the id.loc.gov references. So it's a rather new area, and of course it's not required, but as more libraries move into linked data cataloging, you may expect this to grow. At the same time, this is the data that were available when I was doing the training. There's likely more data that could be pulled in now. And sort of a baseline analysis of genres. This is the 655A field. Now, if a library has made use of this field, and I think some do and some don't, but you can use this to target. Well, I'll just go ahead and say, like, some are more like the Penn library. You can see we're using this more for films. Stanford, of course, it's a small selection, but of what they put in, there's more music. So that's kind of an interesting separation of concerns. And the reason I note that is because the RDF editor, suppose there's a genre target, like the cataloger has entered into the form that there's a specific genre. The editor may select sort of a Stanford specific API as, if they select music as a genre, then you might use that endpoint. So you can have either all schools combined into an endpoint or separate APIs based on genre type. You could slice this a couple different ways, but I feel like genre type is one of the ways which you can target this. And as much as we're trying to help catalogers, this is a way you can try to help the machine learning system. You could say, hey, we trained you on this genre more so, and that's what's being cataloged now. So perhaps this will give you higher scores. And of course, the testing out the data, really you get pretty good results without having to do too much configuration of algorithms. And I'll go ahead and say that I think as machine learning has advanced, I think the field is moving towards a data-centric approach, which is making your data and your labels as good as they can be, in putting less emphasis on algorithm development, because sure, you can set the ensembles, but at a certain point, it's going to come down to how good your training data are over algorithms. And I think that for a long time, machine learning focused on algorithms over data. So here's just an example workflow of not super complicated. You have your RDF editor. Cataloger is going to type in a title of within the BF work description. Title gets sent to the Annif API. From there, you return suggestions with scores. There can be business logic and Sinopia, which is just basically like a set of instructions that'll tell you, those that are higher in this threshold, maybe display those. Now, those are populated to the subject form field, but the cataloger always has the choice to select what they would like. And then we're just hoping that this might be able to auto-suggest subject attributes. And this is, sort of in contrast to completely automated cataloging. And I think it, in some ways, tries to combine the best of both, in the sense that cataloger choice is always available. And then we're also trying to extend the professional expertise. So, catalogers are learning how to work with machine learning tools at the same time that those machine learning tools are learning to make use of sort of human expertise as well. And so, what I'm planning at Penn is we're going to focus on some user evaluation of some of the machine learning outputs. And of course, you could study some of the algorithms, which Annif can support for future experimentation. I have also started to look at, this is introduced kind of an older API, which perhaps some of you have seen this before. It's rather old. Other ways we might be able to auto-suggest things, and this isn't necessarily machine learning. I think this is more what OCLC did was more along the lines of data mining, but they have an endpoint that could provide access when provided an input of, say, ISBN or ISSN. You can get back suggested authors, fast subjects with URIs, and Library of Congress, sort of shelf number, call number. That's useful in the sense that it meets the objective of trying to streamline an entity description using already existing data. So actually using the work that catalogers have already put in. And I think what this classification API, it's going through much of what OCLC already holds and says, like, these are the most assigned for this ISBN. This is the author that is most assigned if it's available. These are the fast subjects that are most assigned, and this is the LC number that's most represented. And you always have the option, the cataloger always has the option to select. So they could say, okay, I see the LC number, I'm going to tweak that a little. What cataloger wouldn't love to do that, right? So the data flow is very similar. This is a suggestion that I very recently provided to the service that might pull this in for the RDF editor, which is basically just to take either your ISSN, ISBN, send that to the Classify Web API. It uses XML. It returns XML, so you're going to parse that, and then the business logic again could evaluate which parts that are relevant that you want to pull in, and again, cataloger selects the relevant properties. So that's my talk. I have to give much appreciation to the Annif tutorial. That was really excellent. This syntax library, I chose to use the C version of it, right down to I know people have built in things over this, but I use this to convert SCAs from Library of Congress into TTL, and then, of course, the OCLC research, the experimental classification service you can find there. So I will stop there. I'm done talking. I'll be happy to take your questions now.